It's so amazing. Amazing. Putting on my big boots and taking a hike up your ass. Amazing. Hey, folks. Welcome to the Jake and John Show, world's greatest podcast of all time. I'm John, and as always, I'm here with Jake. We're the host.
What's up?
And we were talking about something. We went to get our food, and I think today's first topic is, what is it called again?
Analysis paralysis.
Okay, and so what this is basically is when you overthink something so much that you get to the point where you're paralyzed and you don't make a move and you likely miss out on opportunities in life.
Yeah, it's kind of like overthinking something to the point of, it's like having an inability to make a decision because you're stuck on the finer points of a particular topic.
Yeah, I think that anybody listening to this can for sure relate to that because it's common. Even if you're a confident person and you have great opportunities, sometimes when you really want to do something and you want it bad enough, that fear gets in the way of doing that shit. Like when I joined the military, it was probably, I don't know, 6 months before I even went to the recruiter and I started to like seriously think about it. And I started to get these fears of, where am I going to be stationed? Am I going to like it? That's a long contract, all that shit. But fortunately, I worked through that and it was a really good decision for me. But I could think of 1,000 examples like that.
Yeah, I've noticed it probably more in the past 10 years than I used to. And I think it's because I'm more, I don't think cautious is the word, but I put more thought into what I do. Because I know, when you're young, you're more impulsive and you'll just kind of jump on opportunities and you'll, I guess it's really just a matter of not really a lot of forward thinking going on. It's just like, hey, that sounds cool or whatever, let's do it. Where now I think a lot about the impact of everything. Now, this doesn't, necessarily impact all parts of my life, but say like at work, here's something. So over the years, I've gotten better and better and better at what I do. I mean, like you would with anything. So now, rather than like, say I'm putting in a new system, new software package, we're getting something new. I read all the material now, whereas before I'd be kind of like, yeah, fuck it, we'll do the quick start guide, Yeah. But now I look at all the details so we can get a more proper or more full implementation where we're actually using more of, and kind of tuning it to what you need. So, which is great, but a lot of times in this, you have it's almost like you have too many decisions.
Yeah.
And then you're like, fuck, which is the best one? And then sometimes, you can blow through a lot of them. And then other times you look at it and you're like, man, there's just not like a 100% great answer on this. And those are the ones I think that really take up the time because you're like, which one's better, this or this? And it could just even be a minute detail, but it's one of those that has enough impact. It's like they talk about with the airplane, it's a matter of degrees. Like if you do this, you'll be 1,000 miles off course, even if it's a small change here. So I think that's kind of what it stems from is thinking about all these little decisions and the impacts they have versus being really impulsive, which I think is maybe just a younger man's game.
Yeah, I think it might be. Sometimes it's okay to be a bit impulsive, but I think that as you get older, you realize that statistically, if you live your life that way impulsively, you're probably going to enter some fucked up territory, and sometimes decisions that you make can haunt you for a lifetime, just by being impulsive. Excessive gambling or getting someone pregnant that you don't want to marry and have a child with, but you're in the moment. Oh man, she's so hot. I'm going to come inside of her. You know what I mean? That young man, that sexual angst, right?
Yeah.
But I can think of an example for me where this is exactly what it was. It was the paralysis part is the lady that I'm with now. I've known her for 25 years. And there was so many times in our, I guess, like somewhere teenage years and early 20s where, like, I always liked her, but I just couldn't pull the trigger, I couldn't, and I thought she liked me, but I wasn't 100% sure. And we were definitely like friends, you know, we hung out and shit.
Yeah.
But I was paralyzed by it. But it makes me wonder if had we gotten together then, would we be together now? Who knows?
Yeah.
You know?
I think there's always those questions, and that almost kind of segues into the issue of timing, you know, which I mean is a huge topic. Because you can always say that's almost a hindsight situation, is would it have been this or that? But, you know, sometimes timing, I think, is mission critical in those two. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to tell when you're especially when you're dealing with relationships and things like that. So, what I'm trying to figure out now, and well, I've been trying to figure this out for a long time, is kind of that balance, right? So, I'm going to use work as examples because that's where I notice it the most. Now, it impacts me in all kinds of ways, trust me. Like personally, hell, when I'm buying a TV, like, I mean, you know, I'm looking at all these details and all this. But one thing I notice, and this is a large example I can think of at work, is sometimes I'll talk to people, not necessarily I work with, but are in the same profession, that are doing similar projects to what I'm doing. And they'll be, you know, a lot further in. And I'm like, man, so how did you do this and this and this and this? And then they didn't worry about that shit. They just went for it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's, for me, it's trying to figure out at what point do you just kind of say, fuck it and go for it and not spin your wheels on these smaller things. Because, you know, rather than going for this like perfect setup, this perfect implementation of whatever you're trying to do, is to just kind of like, you know, taking your hands off the wheel and letting it kind of roll on its own as best as it can for a little bit. I mean, you still would have to make larger decisions, but maybe just not worrying so much about the smaller ones. That's kind of the gauge I deal with, and trying to figure out at what point do you let that happen. And, you know, is it just like OCD on my part that's not letting that happen? Because you talk to lots of people and they're like, yeah, fuck it, I just did it, you know? Yeah. And a lot of times it works out fine, you know? It's just, that's the part I struggle with a little bit. And it's kind of like a mixed bag, because for me, it's been a positive thing, as in it's helped me get better at what I do. But it's also, I can see where it's negative, where if it's impacting timelines and things like that, because, you know, you start having to have that internal argument of time versus value. Like, is it whatever this change is, or whatever this decision I'm trying to make is, if it takes an additional 24 hours to do it, was it enough of an impact that mattered? Like, let's take it, for instance, if I'm going to buy a new TV and I go look at all the features on these, like, say I've narrowed it down to 2 and I'm looking at all of them. Does it matter at the end of the day if one had 4 HDMI ports and the other one had 5, you know, or something like that? Was it worth 24 hours to figure that shit out, you know? And if it cost $10 difference, you know? But that's the things I find myself doing sometimes, is it's like, fuck, I wasted a lot of time on something that at the end of the day, if you go back and think about it, it's really kind of minor details. But I'm thinking, man, for $10 more, if I can get this little feature, is that worth doing? But I'm spinning my wheels on it, you know?
Yeah, I think as, again, a lot of that does come with age. And you and I share similarities as far as being impulsive. We tend to look at everything first before we make a decision a lot of the time. And I think that it comes from experience, and it comes from experiencing whenever you were impulsive, you ended up with a negative result. And I can give another example of that is when I was 14 and I worked at that ice cream shop. You remember that? Yeah. And I saved up like $250. And this guy down the street was my friend's dad. He was selling a piece of shit truck. It was like a Chevy or a Ford. It was like a Ranger.
This is that white truck?
Yeah, and it had a camper on the back. And this thing was just a piece of shit, but it did run and it did drive. Now, I think that it needed, you know, new plates and all that shit. It was going to cost money, but it was $250. I was 14, and I was like, I got to get that, because my 15th birthday was coming up, because it was like close to the summer, I think. And so I would be able to get my permit, you know? Yeah. And be able to drive around. So I went down there and I bought it, and he drove it over to our driveway, and we had a really long driveway, and we parked it up, or they parked it up by the garage. And then when Dad would come home from work, or when Mom would, she would park behind it, and it was just that one car. So until somebody got home, I had this long ass driveway. I mean, it's like 100 feet maybe.
That's good size.
75. Yeah. That's just the way that neighborhood's built. It's long driveways, and so instead of waiting until our dad got home to show me how to drive a manual transmission, I got impulsive. And I fucking got in there, and two of my friends came over, and they're like, yeah, do a burnout, speed up. And I was going up and down the driveway. I must have went up and down the driveway like 20 or 30 fucking times, like trying to do different shit. And I don't know what happened, but I'm sure you remember this day. I don't know if somehow I thought the clutch was the brake, or if the brakes just went out. To this day, I think the brakes just went out on it, because this thing was a piece of shit.
Yeah, I do remember that.
It was like the worst fucking car I've ever seen in my life. I don't even know how it ran, but I ended up driving in through the garage door that was down, and I was going like 1 or 2 miles an hour, but that truck had just enough oomph to just drive right into it, and it folded the door up and fucked it all up, and the truck was like probably 2/3 inside of the garage.
What ended up stopping it? Was it just from hitting the garage door? Or did you hit something, or it just... because it was just basically idling, right?
Yeah, and and then it was there, and just that moment of fear and panic whenever it didn't stop, and I knew I was like a foot or 6 inches away from it, and I knew I was going to hit it. Yeah. It was like the worst feeling, dude. But I'm so glad that nobody was standing in front of it. That's the first thing. But that feeling was the worst. And then mom and dad got home, dude, and I was so ashamed and embarrassed, and just fucking, they tore me apart, dude. They just like, you know what I mean? Just like fucking verbal abuse that I 100% deserved. And that was the end of that. I think that dad sold the truck and kept the money and fixed the garage door with it. But the point of all this being, of course, is that I was being impulsive and irresponsible instead of training and learning first, and assuming that I thought I knew everything. Most kids think they fucking know everything. They didn't know how to drive because they've been in a car with people who drive. So, I could do that. It's fucking easy,
Yeah.
But I had never driven a manual transmission ever. I've just seen our brother do it, or our dad when he had the Yugo. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I thought I knew what to do, man. And I guess maybe I did, to go back and forth 20 times, but I did something wrong. But maybe the brakes went out. I don't know. I'm hoping the brakes went out. But anyway, I fucked that garage door up, and that's the price you pay a lot of times when you're impulsive and irresponsible, is you end up regretting it.
Yeah, it's I guess for you and I both, where if you think back on our childhood, we're wildly different people now too. And for that, I guess it's growing up and you learn things, but I guess to me sometimes it's just shocking when looking back. It's just how much I'm analyzing things now versus then, and how much of an impact it has on the speed of my decision making. And because now, even before, like, say I would paint a room or something like that, like, I think about a lot more things. I'm like, man, if I get furniture in 6 months, is it gonna match with this and make sense? You know what I mean? It's just like I start rattling through all these things where, even it's like, let's say that took me like 24, 48 hours to kind of come to grips with what I wanted to do in that room. Then it end up doing it the same color anyway, and then it's just like, fuck, I wasted all that time.
Yeah.
That's the piece I'm struggling with a little bit, is that, oftentimes I end up doing what the impulsive thing was anyway. And I've just wasted some time, kind of validating that decision in my brain.
Yeah. I think the only way to overcome that problem is simply with experience. And then once you have enough life experience, the older you get, you can just make decisions like that, because you've already been through this before a few times, where you've thought about is the furniture going to match? Is it going to fit? Is this going to look right? The color, all this shit. Does it look like a happy room or a sad room or a serious room? You've already thought about all that shit in the past, and you can be impulsive then,
Yeah, I feel like it's almost like a bell curve. Like, I started out impulsive. Now I've gone up to this weird, like, analytical stage. Well, I mean, not weird, but just an analytical stage. And now I'm coming back on the other side of that bell curve, where it's like, man, I need to re-add that impulsive kind of behavior a little bit more, just to get shit done. And to not only that, but sometimes just to get what you want. It's like that was your first thought. Because I'm not, I mean, this, I'm not super impulsive about things. That, I don't just go out and buy things. I don't, I'm not a person that ever buys something and then it's like, I didn't really want that, and take it back. Like that, that almost never happens to me, because, what is much more likely to happen is I'm like, man, I want that. And I'll go to the store, and then I talk myself out of it while I'm there, and I end up not getting it at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those kind of things. This is just one of those, I guess, adult learning curves, which is I'm almost 40 now, right? But it's just figuring out, that balance between being impulsive and being very analytical about situations and figuring out which situations are worth the time to do that with.
Yeah, I used to have a real problem with, I don't know, not impulse buying, but almost impulse buying. And I'd be like, man, I got to go get this shit for my computer. I used to be real heavy into gaming computers and shit like that. Yeah. And so something new would come out that I thought could give me an edge or just make my computer look more badass or more comfortable for my wrist. I don't know, just something like that. Then I would go buy it. And then I got to a point where, this is when I lived in New Jersey, I had to drive like 30 minutes to go to any store because of where I lived. And so I'd get in the car after work and drive over there, and I'd pull up to Walmart or Best Buy or wherever the fuck I was going. And I'd sit there in the car for like 5 minutes and be like, you know what? Fuck this, man. I'm not doing it. And then I'd just drive back home. And that was a huge fucking waste of time, man. And I did that probably 100 fucking times, if not more than that. Waste of time, waste of gas. It just builds up frustration. But the reason I think I was doing that was I didn't think about it quite enough. Again, I was kind of being an impulse buyer almost. Because I would look at it, I'd look at it on Amazon, read a couple reviews, and be like, yeah, that's fucking badass, I'm going to get it. Mm-hmm. And but I didn't want to wait for it, so I'd go buy it. And but then I had time on the way there to kind of think about it without any distractions, just driving down the road and be like, man, that's fucking, I don't know, man, that's a lot of money. I don't, am I really going to use it? And then I would ultimately come to the conclusion that no, I'm not going to fucking use it. And I turned around. But I don't know what the point of that is.
While you're saying that in terms of buying things, it did make me think of something that has probably, aided in this way of thinking for me, at least in terms of going out and buying things, is when I was, I guess in my early 20s, I made the kind of cliche mistake of getting a credit card with way too much of a limit and running it up. And it got to a point to where, with the amount of finance charges that were on it and everything, that my payments were gigantic. I mean, especially at the time, considering the amount of money I make, like they'd be hundreds of dollars. But with the finance charges and all that, like I was barely making a dent in the principal. Like, pay $200 and $30 of that or whatever went towards the, I'm just going to say tens of thousands of dollars of principal. And it was hard because, like, at the time I did own a house. Now, I kind of fucked up because I stopped paying that credit card, and this was a rookie mistake because at the time there was these stupid businesses. They probably still exist, but what they would do is they would say, we'll basically represent you if you have credit card problems and help you negotiate lower payments. Okay, so basically what you would do is you would pay into these people a certain amount of money, and they would say, okay, we'll negotiate down these payments, and then you will pay the sum, whatever that is, and you'll be done with it. And it's because, credit card bill collectors are ruthless. They'll call you all the time, and, they really just, you feel like a piece of shit is what it boils down to, right? And you're just like, fuck, But, so what happened is now I know this, I was stupid then, is credit cards don't just negotiate down your payments. Right. Like, what has to happen is basically you have to default on the thing, like just stop paying altogether, and they close your account. Your credit's fucked. And then they say, for the remaining balance, they send that to like collections, right? And they'll bug you forever, and your credit's screwed. And the only way you can handle that at all at that point is you can pay them basically kind of pennies on the dollar. That's when they'll negotiate, but you pay it all in a lump sum. You're not going to be paying payments, right? Well, so I was an idiot, and I paid those people way too much money. I mean, it wasn't tons of money at the time, but it's probably, over $1,000 before I kind of understood. So long story short is, it was a huge deal, and it was a shitload of money that I ended up owing these people. Like, I almost got to the point where I had to like sell my house and stuff to pay it off. That's how much money it was, because I had somewhat limited equity in my mid-20s or whatever. Yeah. So long story short, I was able to get through that finally and pay off that lump sum and kind of take the credit hit, which is fortunately since long fallen off. But that changed the way that I thought about money and everything. Because I always knew how to do a checkbook. Like, everything I did was completely impulsive and stupid. There was no, it's because I was just didn't care, or whatever my stupid kid brain was doing. But now I'm kind of like the exact opposite. It's like I'm never going to be in that situation again, and I won't. So it causes me to be like, do I really need that? Or even if I'm at the fucking store ready to buy it, and I'm like, nah, I don't. And I'll just talk myself straight back out of it.
Yeah, we had a close family friend. I'm not going to mention his name, but he had been financially irresponsible. I think he was only a teenager, like 19, and then it kind of creeped into his early 20s, and he had to, I guess, bankrupt at that age because of some very large purchases that he had made and wasn't able to pay. And he told me about it several times. But one night we had a really long talk, and I think I was probably 18 or so, or maybe 19 at the time. And I was asking him all kinds of questions. And basically he told me, he was like, look, man, until you have a solid career, like maybe even in your late 20s or early 30s, don't get a credit card. If you want something, save up for it and buy it. Pay cash, just wait, or you risk having a hard life and a lot of problems. That's basically the gist of what he said. And I took that seriously. And I do have credit cards now, but I didn't get them until I was, I was 33 years old when I got them. And one was, I think, for like a furniture store, and one was like a Best Buy card or something.
Oh, yeah.
Like
I was with you when you did that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was like a big step for me, because prior to that, dude, anything I bought was cash. Like all those gaming computers and shit like that. If I didn't have the money, I would wait a few months and just save everything, nickel and dime it, dude, and then I would pay cash for it. That's what I always fucking did.
Yeah.
Except for a vehicle. That's, you have, I mean, unless you're ready to spend thousands and thousands of cash, which I didn't have. But other than that, like, I was like, fuck that. I'm not getting a fucking credit card, Yeah. Because I had that fear in the back of my mind that just, I don't want to deal with that shit. I don't want people fucking calling me, and I don't know, man. It's a scary thing.
If you don't have the money to pay off a credit card every month, they're the fucking devil, man. They really are, because they're too readily available. The interest rates are the worst you can possibly have, especially if you've missed a payment or two and they jack them up.
Yeah.
Because, you think about, you're playing, 20-ish% interest. That's a lot of money. I mean, especially if you start talking in terms of, let's say you're rolling a balance of $10,000 or something. These numbers add up so fast. So nowadays, I actually use a credit card as my main source of payment, but I pay it off every month, because it turns out now I kind of feel like I'm getting the upper end on them, right? So on my credit card, I have rewards. It's basically cash back. So, it's like a certain percentage of cash back on any purchase, like very small, like 1%, and then like 5-ish% or something on certain things every quarter. So now you just use it like my primary one, pay it off, a couple times a month or whatever, and just basically get like free money on stuff I've already been buying. Yeah. So I finally feel like I'm like getting one back on the man,
Yeah. You're like one of the rare people that they don't make money off of.
Yeah, I've heard that, like, when you do this, and I've got a few friends that do it too, that kind of turn me on to it. The credit card companies call you a deadbeat customer because you're actually on the up and up end of it. You're not the ones paying the enormous finance fees and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, man. Fuck credit cards, man. But as you get older, unless you're wealthy, or I don't know, man, you have to kind of get a couple if you want to get set up in life with a home and furnish it, fairly quickly. And
I think there's perfectly responsible ways to use it. You know what I mean? Like, I guess my only recommendation to like a younger me at this time would be, if you can't afford to make more than that minimum payment, you have no business doing it at all. Yeah. And what's funny about the first credit card I got is like the way those people market them too, because I got my first credit card application. It was this dude walking around with a clipboard at the college, which just like, it's just a ton of people the same age as me. They were 18, 19 years old or whatever. So I'm at I'm at the college, like out in between classes, and there's all these dudes walking around with clipboards. I guess it was, I don't know if it's Chase Bank. I don't know which one it was, but it's basically a way for you to get their student credit card, or whatever it was. So that's kind of where it all started. Is basically I was at college being targeted for my age and stuff by the credit card company, and I get this thing, which are like, it started out with a horrendous interest rate, and then because of my retarded decisions, it just got worse and worse, and it just snowballed. It went from this like little credit card to this enormous like burden on my back.
Yeah,
it was that whole thing. Yeah, that was like a life-changing moment for me, was that credit card. I know we're totally off topic now, but yeah, that completely changed the way I look at all of that. Money. It turned me into a responsible human being as far as finances are concerned, I think.
Yeah, dude. Credit cards are scary, man, and my plan for this year is any extra money that I have, beyond what I pay on them now, is I just want to get rid of them, because neither one of them are very high, and I just want to get rid of them and just fucking don't even think about them again, because I don't know. Obviously, if you're responsible with a credit card, it's not a big deal, and I am responsible with it. I don't want it. I don't want to be part of that shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's just one less thing that could possibly be fucked up in my life. So I'm just, fuck that shit.
I think they're cool. Like, if you have, basically kind of do it the way I do it, where it's your main form of payment, but you're using it the same way you use cash and paying. I think that's good. And I think it's good to have one kind of on the shelf at home. You know what I mean? Or in your safe.
Yeah, for emergencies.
Yeah, one that you almost never use. And, like, let's say you're low on cash and your tire blows out or something. You have some way to handle a situation like that. But it's if you just don't use it impulsively and don't use it every day and just keep it for those very specific situations, then it seems like, it's a pretty reasonable thing to have.
Yeah. Fucking yeah, if you do responsible shit with your credit card like you do and you get free shit, then more power to you, man. I would never just tell somebody, don't get a credit card, but if you're going to do it right.
Yeah.
Or save it for an emergency or whatever.
Yeah, just understand what it can do to you.
Yeah, it can fuck you up, man. But before this slips my mind, I want to talk about Chael Sonnen and Tito Ortiz, who will be fighting tomorrow on Bellator's on Spike, the channel Spike. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And it's great, man. There's a great story behind it because, this is according to an interview with Chael. And in this instance, I have to believe him because he genuinely got teared up, like choked up, and it was real. You know what I mean? And because remember before, this is a while back, when he was fighting Anderson Silva, he had promised his dad on his deathbed that I'm going to be a champion, a world champion. And he almost got it when he almost beat Anderson Silva. That was, to this day, the most exciting fight I've ever seen in my life because he dominated him straight up for 4.5 rounds. He landed like over 350 strikes on Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva did almost nothing to him. Chael Sonnen knocked him down in the stand-up with a right hand, and it was just unbelievable. It was so crazy that I called up Justin in the 4th round, and I made him stay on the phone with me until Anderson Silva triangled him because it was like we couldn't believe it. Like, somebody's going to actually beat Anderson Silva. Yeah. Who the fuck is Chael Sonnen? Who is this guy? Because he did all that great shit talking before the fight, and I thought he was funny, and I knew he was pretty good because I remembered him from, I think it was the WEC. I was like, yeah, he's pretty good, but he's not going to beat Anderson Silva. And fucking he was beating his ass, and I was like, holy shit, I was jumping up and down going nuts, man. But anyway, fast forward. Obviously, he lost to Anderson Silva in their second fight fairly quickly. He threw a spinning back fist, and Anderson moved out of the way and then hit him with one of those flying knees while he was down in the cage in the in the solar plexus area. But anyway, oh fuck, I coughed right into the mic. But anyway, so with that backstory about him promising his dad that, it turns out that a lot of those conversations he had with his dad, they had to do with Tito Ortiz, because back in 1997, Chael and Tito Ortiz were both still wrestling, like college type of shit. Mm-hmm. And Chael Sonnen beat him, and I think it was like in a minute and 30 seconds or something like that. And he did it, and it looked fairly easy the way that he did it. And then so shortly after, Tito went on to fight in the UFC and do well and eventually become the champion fairly quickly. And so Chael was like, man, I can beat that guy. And so after Chael graduated college, he started training for MMA and wrestling with great people like Randy Couture, like a bunch of old school names that are wrestling based, Dan Henderson, and those kind of guys. Yeah. And so based off of his own performance in the gym and him beating Tito in that wrestling match, he was super confident that he could beat him. And so the talks that he would have with his dad, the way that I'm understanding it, is they kind of use Tito as that motivation, like, we'll be world champ, because I guess for him and his dad, it's like they were a team together on it, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so he was talking about that on the Spike Bellator interview, and he kind of broke down and he started to cry, which, I mean, for Chael Sonnen, that's unbelievable. You don't see that from him. And so that makes it even more exciting, because if he does win that championship and he gets to fulfill that promise to his dying father and all that. It's going to be crazy, man. But what else? There was one more aspect. Oh, and then today I watched an interview with Chael Sonnen. I think it was with MMA Fighting. And he actually said fucking for the first... I've never heard him say fuck or shit or anything that I can remember. And they asked him something, and I guess, I don't know if it's from cutting weight or what the deal was. And he was like, just get that fucking microphone out of my face. It was like he wasn't Chael for a second. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was kind of unusual. So, but one more thing about that is that Tito was talking shit. And he was saying that Chael was lying about making that promise to his dying father and all this shit. And Chael's been saying this for years, like when he was fighting Anderson Silva. So I have to believe it's true. I mean, like, who would lie about that shit? You know what I'm saying? And so Tito, you know how Tito is.
Yeah.
He was just talking mad shit, saying that Chael's a compulsive liar, that never happened. He never told his dad that and all this shit. And I think that may have been what triggered the fucking, when Chael was like, get that fucking mic out of my face. I think that maybe that had to do with that. But anyway, I'm ready to see that fucking fight, dude. I cannot fucking wait. And it's free. It's amazing.
Free?
Yeah, I don't know how more people aren't excited about it, dude. It's fucking amazing. You got Tito Ortiz and Chael fucking Sonnen, man. That's great.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty cool pairing. I mean, it seems like a pretty cool pairing of old guys a little bit, I think is what's going on. That's because that, right or wrong, that's kind of my impression of Bellator right now, is that, I mean, they obviously clearly have some good fighters in there otherwise, but like their big main events, generally speaking, there's kind of like UFC,
like Kimbo versus Dada 5000 or whatever.
Yeah. It's like guys that kind of retired from the UFC and stuff. I mean, that's just kind of my impression of it. But that sounds like a good fight. To be honest, until fairly recently, only because I hadn't been keeping up, I didn't even realize Tito Ortiz was still fighting.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's cool to hear though, because I mean that's a name that I've been seeing since I was early 20s or teenager, even maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, this year is his 20th year in mixed martial arts.
Okay, yeah, so
that's a long time.
Yeah, because I mean, I can remember seeing him a long time ago fighting. So
yeah, dude, I can't wait for that fight, man. Chael is going to be great for that company if he wins the belt, because he's just he's a killer on the microphone. He's great at everything, being an analyst, doing cage side, talking shit to people, interviews, anything. He's great at it. But Chael Sonnen is also on Celebrity Apprentice right now. Do you know what that show is?
We talked about that a little bit. Yeah. I think you brought this up a few episodes ago on there with Arnold and stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Whenever somebody gets kicked off the show, he goes, "You're terminated. Get to the chopper," or some shit like that. It's so corny, man. John Lovett's got kicked off. You know who he is, right? Yeah. The comedian. He got kicked off this last Monday or whenever that episode aired. I've watched every single one of them because Chael was on that show.
You know something funny, speaking of The Apprentice, is, if I'm not mistaken, Donald Trump was actually talking shit about the new version of it over Twitter, which is so funny coming from like the President of the United States.
Yeah, it was petty. It was funny. Because I think he was saying like his numbers were a lot bigger than Arnold's or something like that.
Yeah, it was something like that. It's like, that guy is seriously still thinking about that. Yeah. Like, your inauguration's tomorrow, and you're still thinking about that Apprentice shit.
I think he just likes to win, because I thought him and Arnold were friends, and maybe they are, or maybe they have some kind of competition going on the outside or something. I don't know.
Yeah, he's definitely a person who just likes to win. There's no doubt about that. I mean, everything to him is like a competition. He's looking to do everything to the best of his ability. So but it's fun watching that show with Chael on there, because these other celebrities, they're not like him. They're not animals. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't give a fuck about any of them, their feelings, any of that shit. He's there to win and to market himself. And there's an Olympic lady. It's a black woman who was I don't know what sport it was. Like, I have no idea. Pole vaulting, maybe. She's like tall, so maybe volleyball. I don't know. But she, there was like, they had to go on this mission where they could, like, 3 of the people make cookies, and then one of the other people has to fly to wherever and meet Warren Buffett and present the treat to him, and then he's going to sponsor the treat or mass produce it or something like that. And that girl wanted to do it, and Chael straight up shut her down. And and it was fucking hilarious, dude. And he went and met him, and they showed it on TV, and he did great, man.
But he's using that show to his advantage, and I don't know who's going to win it, and I don't know what significance it has if you get paid by episodes or how long you stay on or whatever. But
well, I'm sure. I mean, that show's a great marketing tool for all of those people to kind of get their name out there and sell their whatever they're doing. I mean, whether it's fights for Chael or these other people. I mean, just get them to show up to their comedy shows or whatever it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, if Chael wins this and he beats Tito Ortiz, this is going to be a great year for him, man.
Yeah, that's huge marketing.
Yeah, because I don't know how much he's getting paid in Bellator, but I have to assume it's pretty good because Bellator is paying enough money to where they're making people whose contracts end with the UFC. They're not kicked out of the UFC; their contracts are just up.
Just free agent.
Yeah, and Bellator will pay them more than the UFC will, and I think by a significant amount. So I think there's guys over there making like $500,000 a fight or $400,000 or something, and for a lot of those guys, that's a ton of money.
I think it's probably prime time for an organization like Bellator to really step up, especially with the sell of the UFC and all that. I mean, because you really don't know what's going to happen with the UFC in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, because what does the UFC look like? I mean, it'll still exist, but what's it look like if Dana leaves, if Joe leaves? It's pretty much it's lost its initial identity. I mean,
well, that's the thing is, Mike Goldberg.
Yeah,
the announcer, he's gone now.
I know, and they like basically didn't say anything about it.
They didn't say a word, no farewell, and I guess I don't know the full story, but I think Joe was told not to mention it at the end of the broadcast, and they just closed it out like normal. And I think Joe had said somewhere, I read a news article that basically the only reason why he's still there is because of Dana White, because the people everybody knows that Joe's the best. All the real fans, all fans know that Joe Rogan is the best commentator fucking ever.
Well, he's probably the best advertiser for mixed martial arts that exist.
Yeah, because he talks about it for free on his podcast.
All the time, like every episode, basically.
Millions and millions of downloads, hundreds of millions if you combine them all easily. And it's free advertising for them. And he talks about it because he loves it. They don't have to pay him money or anything like that. But I think WME, I think that's the name of the corporation that bought him out, is they said that they don't want the hype master style of commentating or something like that.
I did read that somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Because before whenever like the preliminaries would end on Fox, Joe would be, get hype, and him and Dana would be in front of the camera right before the pay-per-view comes on, trying to get people to buy it and just tell them about it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was fun. Like, it goes with the spirit of mixed martial arts. They have to understand, this isn't the NFL. It's not the NBA or fucking baseball or any of that bullshit. This is mixed martial arts, and the fans have brought it to where it's at, and they like Joe, and they like Goldberg. You can't come in and change what people like, what made it be a $4 billion company.
Yeah, it's kind of been in a constant state of evolution for a while. I mean, as far as that, first they kind of added the rules, which okay, that's okay. Added weight classes, okay, and now you have these uniforms, and I'm still not. I mean, I don't have any skin in the game, but to me, I thought it was kind of cool when guys would wear whatever they wanted, and they would have their. Whoever was sponsoring them, on their shorts or whatever. I guess I can see what they're trying to do, I think, because I've heard Dana talk about it, and they're trying to make it more mainstream and I guess, and more accessible, I guess is what they're doing. I don't know, but I agree with you. When you start fucking with the culture that built it, I don't know if that's a good move or not.
I don't think it is. Any fans that I know, they think so many of these new changes are stupid. Like the shorts thing, I guess I don't really care, but I do care because some of my favorite fighters, I'm not their financial advisor. Never even met them. I probably never will, but they're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars because they can't put the sponsors on their shorts, and they can't put down their little banner thing that has all the sponsor logos and shit on it.
Yeah.
And so that just sucks for them, dude. And because the more money they make, this isn't always true, but it seems like they can get better training and use better technology to recuperate and shit like that.
Well, it seems like as a fighter, if that's your primary source of income, the more money you can make doing it, the more time you could dedicate to getting better at it.
Because for a lot of those guys, like some of those guys work full-time jobs still.
Yeah.
They're firemen or fucking engineers or whatever.
Because you got all your higher level, your Conor McGregors. He doesn't have to do shit except train to fight and do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, and he can fly anywhere at any time to train with anybody if he wants.
Right. But you're right. Like the kind of undercard guys, they don't have that that ability. You know, I mean, they can go to their day job, you know, working in a warehouse and then go into their gym after work, which is cool. Like, and that's probably the right way to come up. But you know, if you're coming in and you're entertaining people and you're doing a good job, then you should be able to make some money.
I think so too, man, because it's sort of an insult how much Reebok pays. Because I think if you have between 1 and 5 fights, it's $2,500 for the night to wear the Reebok shorts, which are mandatory. And then it goes like every 5 fights you have, I think it goes up $5,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's so if you've had 20 fights, yeah, you get 20 grand from Reebok, and then plus your base pay of whatever that is, your win bonus. But still, man, some of those guys who are just fucking savages, they're just not getting paid what you'd think they should for the time they've put in and the victories they've racked up and their highlight reels and all the fan love they brought in. And, you know, you see their pay and you're like, what? The dude made 90 grand? What the fuck?
Well, I guess the market will kind of, you know, it'll figure out what the people want, because if it becomes less than it was, and then they, you know, because a lot of people follow it the same way they follow a soap opera, the same way that people follow like wrestling, because the stories, you know, build, and there's all this kind of lore behind the fights, and you know, just basically what the promotion has become. And if you kind of start taking that away, I don't know what'll happen. You know, maybe that's where somewhere like a Bellator or somebody kind of picks it up and creates an environment that is similar to what other people, you know, I mean, because you're going to get to an end of an era where Dana leaves, Joe leaves, and there's just not going to be any familiar faces around there anymore. You know, you start losing some refs. You know, you don't have a Herb Dean, you don't have a Big John McCarthy, and all this, and all of a sudden, this kind of like stable framework of what they have for the UFC just no longer exists. So I don't know what impact that has on it in the long term. I mean, I like seeing the same guys on there every time, just because, you know, you've kind of grown accustomed to that, and it's kind of made a cool vibe around the UFC.
For sure. Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor. You've read that shit, right?
Yeah, I've read all of it.
Yeah, I don't remember if we talked about that before. And I don't think we did. I think we talked about it off mic, but that's interesting. It's not going to happen, obviously, at least not right now, until there's more money involved. But I would like to see that, and obviously. It's in Floyd Mayweather's favor if they're in a boxing ring, like significantly in his favor. But one thing is, I mean, I don't know what weight they would have to be. They'd have to negotiate that. But Conor, to me, looks a lot fucking bigger than Floyd Mayweather does.
What does Floyd Mayweather weigh? I don't even know.
You know, I want to say that he's fought somewhere between 147 and 157. Because they have, in boxing, they have those weird weight classes. They have like fucking 40 weight classes, you know?
Yeah.
And all these titles. And I guess I don't know. I don't like that. I don't like so many weight classes. But regardless of that, I think Conor's reach, I don't know. I got to look up the stats, but just by looking at their bodies, as he looks like he's a lot longer, he hits way harder, and then he's just bigger. He's physically a much bigger person, you know, like at least 1 or 2 UFC weight classes bigger. If let's say if neither one of them have dehydrated in any way, just normal day, and they walk next to each other, I think Conor looks like way fucking bigger.
Let's talk about that for a minute. You know, let's think about logistics of that. How does that go down? I'm pretty sure there's a 0% chance that that's an MMA fight.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
That's just not going to happen. It's going to be a boxing match if that happens, because you can go that way, but it's much harder to go.
Yeah.
You know, it's much harder to go from boxing to MMA if that hasn't. You know, I mean, you'd have to start like at ground zero on grappling probably and things like that. So,
yeah.
But and you know, I did read. You know, Conor got his boxing license in California. Not that means a whole lot, but that kind of symbolizes to me that he's thinking in terms of boxing. You know. So I can see if it's going to happen, it would have to be a boxing match. I don't know how long Conor's contract is, or what his contract is with the UFC.
Well, the thing is if the price is right, Dana will support that, because I don't think Dana, when he was talking about giving them $25 million each, I don't think he was talking about a mixed martial arts fight. I think he was saying he would help co-promote or promote the boxing match.
Yeah.
And because we know Floyd's not going to get in the octagon. And if he does, it's not going to be for less than like $200 million, because he's 100% going to lose and get embarrassed. And it's not going to hurt his boxing legacy, but just to his image of being like this world beater, it's gonna do something to it. Because Conor's kicks, dude, like his teep and his little front kicks and side kicks and all that shit he does, dude, he would never even have to punch him. He would just eat him up with kicks.
I think there's a 0% chance of that MMA being involved at all. It would be boxing, and I don't know if they. I mean, it seems like if they want it to happen, it'll happen. I mean, it's all money, right? It's just a matter of, can they agree on the money? And is Floyd serious, or are they just like kind of co-promoting each other? I mean, for all I know, they call each other on the phone and like, hey man, let's talk some shit. And, so I don't, because Floyd's come out. What did he just said recently? Somebody asked him if he would come out of retirement. He's like, nah. He's like, the only fight I'm interested in at all is Conor McGregor. Yeah. And that was from Floyd's mouth, But, is he just talking shit, or is he serious?
Well, I think he might be serious. I saw this. It was an interview where I read it. I don't know. I spent the last couple of days on my lunch breaks reading MMA news and stuff, and it said Dana made a point that, what's his name? Floyd Mayweather has only made 350, or he's only sold 350,000 pay-per-view buys for his last one or two fights, and so that means his popularity is down. Because he's had a lot of big fights, but then after that, after the Pacquiao fight, people are like, well, there's nobody really left. Like, we don't care anymore. And so, but now Conor McGregor comes along, because now he's easily the most famous mixed martial artist ever. It used to kind of be Ronda Rousey, but there's no question now it's fucking Conor McGregor. He's international. People love him. And so the speculation is, if they were able to set up a boxing match between the two of them, that they could get like 2.5 million or 3 million pay-per-view buys, possibly more than that. And it would generate a ridiculous amount of income for both of them, because if their base pay, guaranteed pay, is 25 million, and then after you do so many pay-per-view buys, each fighter gets a percentage of the pay-per-view. Right. And so if you sell 3 million pay-per-views, you're going to be making a shitload of money. I mean, you're both coming up with like 80 million, $100 million, right? I mean, it's insane. And so I think that's something that Floyd needs to think about a little bit more.
And I think he will, because I mean that point has been made now that the pay-per-views would likely be much higher, but there's no way to guarantee that either. I don't know. I guess it just depends on Floyd, right? Because and even Floyd said $25 million isn't anything to shake a stick at. I mean, that's a lot of money. So it'll get to the point: is he serious or not? Does he want that fight? Because he also runs the risk of his legacy, right? Like, if Conor were to beat him, you're no longer the greatest boxer that ever. I mean, he's still the greatest boxer I ever lived, or what? But you're the greatest boxer that ever lived that got beat by a guy who was an MMA fighter. So, I mean, he does run a risk to his legacy. So I guess some of it depends on how important that is to him. Because right now he could never fight again, and he's the GOAT. Like, I mean, and that's that, right? Yeah. He goes down as a GOAT. And
they ducked Conor McGregor.
Well, kind of, right? Because he could always say that was bullshit anyway, or like that was never going to happen. So,
there's people who have made some good points. I've been reading
if Floyd doesn't take that fight, I wouldn't blame him. You know what I mean?
Right? Yeah.
Because it's kind of a freak show anyway. Really, it's not like he's going up against the best boxer that's popped up. It's literally a freak show kind of two guys who are like the most popular in their respective sports, and they're trying to make that pairing. It's something that hasn't really happened.
I think that the only fighter that this works with is Conor McGregor. Not only because they're a similar size, but just his great accomplishments in the sport, and because he's known, at least in the mixed martial arts world, to have very good boxing that's traditional in some ways, but unorthodox in other ways. But it's clean, and it's good technique. And he's just known to just crack people hard, dude. That anything with that left hand, man. Even his right hand's got good power too. Yeah. And that's the thing, is if him and Floyd get in there, and I expect Conor to miss most of the punches he would throw at Floyd. There would be blocked, parried, dodged, whatever.
Well, Floyd is like masterful at not getting hit.
Right. He's like one of him and James Toney are the best ever, as far as I know. But that's the thing, though, is you've seen those fights before where like one fighter wins and it's a shock, and everybody knows, and it's almost like the fighter knows too, that was his 1 in 100 times that he wins that fight. But the mathematics were just right. He threw a punch at the right time, and he clipped the guy, and he won the fight. You know? Sure. And it's not impossible for that to happen with these two, because Conor's quick and he's clean, man. Like, if you look at that left hook that he landed on Aldo, dude, that was lightning fast. Yeah. I mean, Floyd's awesome, but he could get caught with something like that.
Sure.
I mean, maybe it's a 1 in 100, 1 in 10, but it could.
That's what I was saying. That's one of the things he has to consider is he runs that risk to his legacy. You know, you go from undefeated to some dude that's not even a boxer, knocking you out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be going through his head too. Is because there's potential you get a professional fighter that can happen.
Yeah, if I'm betting money, I'm obviously in a straight up boxing match with no modified rules or gloves or anything. I'm going with Floyd. I mean, how could you not?
Yeah.
But I accept the possibility, not just because I love Conor McGregor, but I've just seen shit happen in fights, especially when the other fighter is significantly longer and larger. Dude, you can get clipped, man. It can happen.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I would be surprised if Conor won in a way that was not a knockout,
like a technical decision of some kind.
Yeah, I think I would be surprised if he won by decision.
Yeah,
if he won by knockout, I could see that happening. But like decision wise, I don't think so. Like if it went the length, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I
think.
Of course, another thing that would be interesting to see in that is kind of what his cardio looks like with boxing. Because if you're not throwing those kicks and stuff, you may not be gassing near as fast.
Yeah.
If you're not going to the ground, if you're not, you can potentially stay a lot fresher a lot longer than if you're doing those kinds of things. So, I mean, it would be a whole new game on that level too.
Yeah, and if they're, I think his weight class for the most part is 154 pounds. I think that's what it is. Because I remember seeing that he missed weight one time by 3 pounds, and he had to give up 20% of his purse or whatever it is. I think that's what it is. And it was a shitload of money because he was getting paid millions of dollars. So his opponent got hooked up off of that. Yeah. But he was, he explained it later, is it's not worth it. If I'm not feeling right, then, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And for him, for his brand and for how much he's getting paid anyway, I gave him $2 or $3 million. Oh, well,
Well, that's what I mean is because he's a fighter that has legacy. So for him to get beat if you're not feeling right or you're not feeling that's not worth it, because he'll make more his next fight if he wins, or his next 10 fights if he wins. He maintains that star power and that undefeated status, which is going to mean more than missing a weight cut at any time.
Can you imagine Conor McGregor's ego if he knocked out Floyd and Mayweather like in the first round, like he did Aldo?
That would be unfucking believable,
dude. He would be unstoppable and untouchable. That gives him a year, 2 years of straight shit talking. He doesn't even have to fight if he doesn't want to, because he's 2-time UFC 2 weight class champion, and then he just beat the greatest boxer to ever live, arguably anyway. And that would be crazy. I'd love to see it.
As much as I love to watch the guy fight, I do think he's another guy with legacy, though. So,
yes.
I mean, there's going to come a point where he's going to have to make a decision. It's like, you can take that star power and do something else with it. I mean, maybe he becomes a part owner of the UFC, or he does something a little bit different, but maintains that star power that he's got. Because I mean, the odds are against you. You fight long enough, the chances are you're going to get beat. You're going to get beat bad, especially in the UFC, because people don't get worse.
Yeah, people are coming
we've
up.
seen that. I mean, we've just seen the way that fighters have transformed over just the past 10 years. They're already. It's a whole different game, and that'll be true in 5 years from now. I mean, fighters are going to be stronger. They're going to be better. They're going to have better technique. It's one of those things that it's continuously getting better. So I mean, the odds are, and he's going to be on the other side of that where he's getting older. So, I don't know. I guess, you see what happens. I mean, obviously you still got your Tito Ortizes and stuff fighting, but they're different though. They're not the same level of star power, not the same level of legacy.
But I like that. I don't mind it, the older guys fighting, but I want them to fight guys kind of from their era and their age.
No, I like that too. I'm talking more in terms of Conor and his star power, right?
Yeah.
Like where he sits today. How long can you do that? I don't know. I mean, when do you hit that other fight where they're because he could have lost to Nate Diaz. The
second time for sure.
I mean, he could have got hurt bad the first time. I mean, that could have been a lot worse than it was.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of time.
Yeah, that's so weird, man. And I know they fought at 170 pounds both times, but it's weird because even the second time around, Conor knocked him down a lot, and Conor won that fight the second time. I mean, you can say people say it's close and stuff like that.
I think it was pretty close.
Yeah, but when I look back on it, and I'm talking, okay, well, by my criteria, I should be saying by the judges' criteria, by the official rules. But my criteria is, man, he knocked him down with punches. And some people were saying, well, no, he was baiting him, trying to pull guard and shit. I'm like, I don't know, dude. I'm pretty sure that he just got cracked hard as fuck. But
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but that's what's crazy, man, is it's not only obviously Conor's getting way better every fight between camps. He takes it very serious and all that shit. But you look at how he defeated Eddie Alvarez, who's an amazing fighter.
Yeah.
But he just picked him apart and landed that 4-piece combo to finish it that was just beautiful, like textbook, just amazing. And then, he's the champ. And then Nate Diaz is ranked like number 5, I think, or maybe 4 or 6, somewhere in that region at lightweight. And it's just so weird. Like, MMA math doesn't work, you know what I mean? Because on any given night, Nate Diaz at 155 could beat Conor McGregor. He could do it.
Yeah.
But, I don't just, man, it's so
I don't know. I think
crazy, dude.
I think Ronda Rousey tells you everything you need to know about MMA math, right? I mean, if you think about it, between Holly and Misha, that tells you this triangle of what the fuck,
Yeah.
I mean, that anything could happen in that realm, I mean, and that's one of those that, on paper shouldn't have happened the way it did, but there's that variable and it changes so wildly from fight to fight.
Yeah, that's like the whole thing they say, man, is styles make fights, and that's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's, because I still think that somewhere out there that there's a really powerful and clean and lightning fast technical wrestler, and that's going to be Conor's downfall. Is just get him on the ground, dude, and just give him the old Chael Sonnen ground and pound. Don't let him up, Mm-hmm. And I think that guy's out there and he's coming up somewhere. But before I forget, I was thinking about this. Did you watch the Yair Rodriguez and BJ Penn fight?
I did not. I checked in on it. I'm aware of what happened.
Yeah, that kid, I already knew he was good because of all his other fights. He throws really fun, flashy kicks that are lightning fast, and he lands a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And dude, but this was next level shit. This was perfect technique, and it was like he was on speed. He would just throw these kicks in like rapid succession, and they were all landing, just eating BJ Penn alive, dude. And it was crazy. But I believe that's at 145 pounds. And so let's say if Conor ever went back to 145, there's a real good chance that within the next year or so, he's going to be fighting that dude.
Yeah.
And that dude is no joke. I'm not saying that, he can beat Conor, but it's not impossible.
Yeah.
Not impossible. You let another year of training and that hunger and go by, and Conor's having to deal with other shit in the world. I don't know, man.
Yeah, when you get those guys and you can tell the difference when you're watching fighters, the ones that have that magic to them, the ones that, it's just like everything's working, like just everything connects, and the speed and the, just that like raw power. Because we've talked about that before. Like you have your somewhat generic fighters where it's like, I've seen this fight 1,000 times, but then
the classic boxer wrestler type of shit.
Yeah, you see that, but then you see these guys come in and you can tell almost immediately there's something different about this guy. He's fast. It's the way they move and the fluidity of their movement and how just accurate they are, and accurate in strange ways. Accurate with a knee, or just it's something where it's when they do something you're like, holy shit,
Yeah.
The knockout is like shocking or something. And those are the guys that I think, especially in the UFC, is the fighters are just getting better and better and better. I think the scouting's getting better, and you're just going to see a lot more of that. Is just these guys where it's just a pool of animals,
Yeah, that's the thing that's going away. And somewhere along the line in the last few years, I've kind of become an MMA snob. And unless I know the hype on somebody, or they've somehow made a name for themselves when they're on the early prelims, as I used to watch that shit like fucking, you know what I mean? Every fight mattered to me. It was super important.
Yeah.
But now, as a lot of times in those early fights, that's what you're seeing. But that doesn't mean that those guys can't become champions.
Yeah.
But those first few runs in there, they're working the nerves out and stuff, and they're kind of just doing the generic wrestling and kickboxing style. And occasionally you'll get a good knockout or a great submission, or you'll see good scrambles and transitions. But I don't know, man. I'm not as interested in that. I'm more interested in people that I know are going somewhere, or they're taking the right steps to go somewhere. Like that Yair Rodriguez guy. I was like positive he was going to beat BJ Penn,
Yeah.
because Not just because BJ Penn's last performance was not good against Frankie Edgar, but it just, I don't know, man. When you look at their styles, like when BJ Penn used to come out, dude, I was so happy and so excited. He has that awesome entrance music, and it was BJ fucking Penn, you know? And he would come in there and just do amazing shit. But when you go back to those fights, and sometimes I'd watch him on Fight Pass and shit, and I'm like, damn, man, I miss BJ Penn. But the reality is that we don't live in that world anymore, man. Like, that style doesn't work anymore.
Right.
Whenever you're fighting fucking Yair Rodriguez, dude, you got to go back and watch this. Easily top 3 or top 5, one of the greatest performances in mixed martial arts I've ever fucking seen, dude. Because when you see how he just throws those kicks with the same leg over and over, and it's just snap, 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 just instant. I mean, how can you fucking defend that? You know what I mean? It's like he's from a different planet compared to 38 or 39-year-old BJ Penn. It was just fucking amazing, dude, and I can't wait to see what happens with that dude.
I think that's going to be. I think I'm speculating here though that we're going to start seeing people maybe retiring earlier now that the anti-doping is so strong and all that.
Yeah,
I mean, because unless you have some kind of genetic predisposition to have higher testosterone at a older age, and I mean a lot of those guys are in real good shape, so that's the thing. But you can't. How do they mess with somebody who's like between 18 and 29 years old? You know what I mean? Like, because that's going to be kind of that peak, and if you don't have any way to supplement that, then I think maybe you start aging out a little earlier at some point.
Yeah, and the thing is people are training earlier now. Like before, you might have wrestlers that have been training since they were children, or somebody who just did karate since they were a child. But now you have people who are training the full spectrum of martial arts from the time they're 5 years old or 4 years old.
Right. Because that's something that didn't exist even. Because even like around where I live, I can think of 3 MMA gyms.
Yeah,
within a very close proximity. I don't know how good they are or anything like that, but they exist. And I know some friends of mine my age, their kids are in MMA at young ages, like under 10 years old. Yeah. Right. So you're right. They're training now, and they're starting with MMA right, like from the beginning. Yeah. They're not taking they're not starting with karate and moving to this and moving to wrestling, high school wrestling or whatever. It's MMA right out the gate.
Yeah, there's a Gracie MMA school, like legit Gracie school, and it's less than like 3 or 4 miles from here.
Is it?
Yeah, it's just crazy, man. And because before, the only mixed martial arts school within, I would have to guess, at least 100 miles or more, was Eve Edwards School that was over here. That's the one that I went to for a little bit. I don't know if I want to call it a school or a gym or whatever it was, But oh shit! But that was badass that time. I'm so happy that I got to go there. Just got to throw that in there. But yeah, dude, there's MMA gyms everywhere, and it's like a common thing now. And not only is it that people are starting younger, you have a massive pool of people to choose from. Right. And of course, the best out of that pool are going to come to the top. And it's just this is the thing though, is that Yair Rodriguez guy. When I saw that performance, I'm like, how can anybody get better than that guy? I mean, I'm not necessarily talking about his submissions or his wrestling until we see something like super incredible with that, but I'm assuming they're good. There's a lot of hype around his ground game too. Is like, there's somebody out there who's like 2 years old right now that's going to be 100% better than he is, and that's insane. Eventually, there's some kind of stopping point, but I don't think we're going to be there for another 20 or 30 years to where there's kind of a peak.
Well, we're just now getting to, it'll be in the next 10 years. So all these kids that have started out in MMA gyms, there's going to be a huge pool comparatively of these kids. So, I mean, you're going to have all the ones that have the, it's kind of like the way your pro football players or your pro basketball players, these are the guys that have like a genetic advantage. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, like these guys are going to kind of bubble up a little, I'm guessing a little more frequently, and there's going to be a much larger pool of people that are actually doing it. So, I think they're just going to be, they're going to continue to be able to pick the best of the best, and it's going to be such a huge pool that it's going to be exciting is what it's going to be. You're going to have some just like truly amazing human beings out there.
For sure. And I think that when we start seeing a bunch of people who are like Jon Jones and Yair Rodriguez, like those type of fighters, when that becomes common, I think the sport's going to get a lot more popular because you're going to see a lot more action a lot higher level skill sets in all positions in the fight, less holding on the cage or less stalling on the ground. And you're just going to see highlight reels all over the place because everybody can do everything, And that's going to be the shit, and I can't wait for that day to happen. But, for now, I'll take what we got.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Check out that Bellator fight tomorrow. Yeah, I didn't realize it was free, so that's cool, too.
Yes. Yeah, man, I can't wait. But I think we got to wrap it up here. I don't have... Dude, I got to stop hitting that. I bet that's so annoying for people who are listening. But let's get this thing out here. Yeah, the phone number thing.
Okay, yeah. One day I'm going to memorize this. You would think as many times if we said it.
I wanted to ask you, have you checked the messages? I haven't checked them ever.
Yeah, I have been checking it.
Okay.
So, yeah, we're watching, guys. But anyway, as always, check us out, jakeandjonshow.com on Twitter and on Facebook at Jake and John Show. Our number, if you want to leave us a voicemail, is 804-557-4691. If you like the show, please subscribe on whatever platform you're on. It really helps the show. If there's anybody out there that wants to be a potential guest or has an idea for a potential guest, reach out to us and let us know. And you can leave us a voicemail. You can hit us up on the blog, just whatever makes sense. Send us a message on Twitter. We'll check it out. But anyways, until next time, everybody take it easy, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, take it easy, and don't forget to watch the Chael and Tito fight tomorrow in Bellator on Spike because it's going to be dope. All right, I'm done.
Peace out.